What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Three Wide Podcast. And as you can see, I'm all alone. The Friar Man cannot join us today. I'll probably show you why if you subscribe to my main YouTube channel, Ethan Reich 23, as well as the social medias that I post on, because me and the Friar Man went karting yesterday or Saturday, November the 12th. And I have footage. We both have cameras. I have a GoPro. He has an Acaso. And basically, the angle that he got was not a good angle. And usually, I win the races, not to brag or anything. And he comes around either first or second. He came fifth, eighth, and sixth. And he was not driving well at all. And I actually got a video of him spinning, which you guys will see shortly. But yeah, he's really mad at himself, so he's gonna miss today's podcast. But it's a very bad podcast to miss because we had the Brazilian Grand Prix this weekend, and as always in Brazil, there is just so much action to unpack. From Friday to Sunday, qualifying to race day. I mean, I still can't get over the shit that happened, so let's just break it down. Let's talk about Friday qualifying and that masterclass of rain that God sent down to bless Haas and Kevin Magnussen in particular. So it was rather dry Q1 and Q2, if I remember correctly, and there's a bit of rain on the radar for Q3. But if you got your lap in early, you were able to go out on soft compound tires because it was still relatively dry. Slicks were the better option of the tire, but the track temp and the track grip itself just fell off a cliff, but you could still get a decent lap in on softs. So, with Haas being the last garage in the pit lane, K-Mag was able to be the first car out, put a lap in, and with the help of I believe it was Russell binning it, K-Mag qualified for the sprint in pole position, which was really, really cool. However, it was short-lived as a sprint race. Russell ran away with it on the soft compound tires. Everybody on softs except for Max Verstappen, who started on mediums basically, and was dominated by George Russell. It was very feisty battling between the two of them. The sprint race, I know most fans, and myself included, don't really like the aspect of more sprint races in the future, but this last sprint race was really, really cool. And we saw a really, really good battle between George and Max for 6 laps, and eventually George got him and ran away with the lead. And that was that. So yeah, Hamilton as well, P2, and yeah, it was really, really good for the Mercedes. They looked really, really fast this weekend. But yeah, enough about the sprint race. Let's get to the action from today. And where do we start? I mean, from lap 1, there's just chaos everywhere. I mean, you had Lando Norris, late breakdown on his birthday, which made me tear up a bit. Not really, but you had Max and Lewis colliding. You had Norris and Leclerc colliding. You had who else went off? There's a couple other people that went off that I just can't quite. Oh, of course, you had the main lap 1 incident I'll talk about, which was the man that we celebrated so much on Friday, Kevin Magnussen, tagged by Danny Ricciardo at turn, I don't know what turn it is, but I think around where Hamilton hit Albon a couple years ago. Yeah, Danny Rick tagged Magnussen, and then because the pack were already coming, Magnussen wanted his car just to roll back so he could avoid everybody and continue with the race. And Danny Rick went around the back of Magnussen, and he rolled right back into Ricciardo and put them both out the race. So it was a very, very feisty opening lap, which saw Lewis and George get away relatively safely, and that brought out the safety car for a couple of laps. I believe they were running for 5 laps. It took a while for the Haas and the McLaren to get put away, really. And then the safety car restart. We saw Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen make contact in the Senna S's. Honestly, let's break it down. So we had Max diving it down the inside of Hamilton, as Max Verstappen normally would, in that deranged mind that he has. Had the corner initially, But then he was on the inside for the corner that Lewis Hamilton was gaining on him. Like Max Verstappen was going ahead into the middle part of the S section, but Hamilton was faster and had the advantage. Hamilton did not give any room to Max Verstappen because he knew he would have him. Lewis would have Max Verstappen, and in doing so, they collided because Max had literally nowhere else to go but either into Hamilton or on the curb and maybe spin out or something. And Lewis had a little bit of damage, but nothing too major. Max had I'd say a major-ish wing problem, and I think some floor damage as well, causing for him to fall back behind the pack, as well as Lewis. But Lewis, I think, only dropped like 5 or 6 positions when Max dropped a lot more than that. For me, and then resulting from this, Max got a 5-second penalty, which, in my opinion, is very, very harsh from the FIA. He did, though, deserve this penalty for something I'll explain in a little while, but Max had honestly nowhere to go. Lewis squeezed him out a lot. I would understand if it was a racing incident, because we saw so many times last year where Max would do the same thing to Lewis and Max wouldn't be given a penalty. I wouldn't be mad with a Lewis penalty, but I would be like, Max got away with a lot worse last year. But I didn't think Max penalty was right for that. He suffered enough by that wing problem. But Lewis in his post-race interview was like, you know how it is with Max Verstappen. Which you do. You know how it is, how super aggressive he is. But he honestly had nowhere to go. But I think it's more of a racing incident than anything. In my eyes, it's definitely not a Max penalty. A few seconds later, we see Lando Norris understeer into Leclerc and put Leclerc into the bin in a really, really hard collision, which myself and the commentators both thought Leclerc would be out of the race. I was texting the Ferrari man, who's obviously a Leclerc fan, saying, "Oh, Leclerc's out of the race." All of a sudden, he drives out and finishes P4. Okay, brilliant race from Charles Leclerc. Also, Fernando Alonso, honorable mention. I think he finished, was it P6, I believe, after starting like P17, I believe. Having some problems in the sprint race with his teammate Esteban Ocon and having a penalty as well. Alonso finished, P5, one better. So, yeah, great race from him. Also, you'd hear on the radio the Ocon's engineer saying, "Esteban, please, for the love of God, do not fight Fernando Alonso." I found that to be hilarious, and especially because before the race, Alonso was like, "Oh, finally, only one more race to go with Esteban." I mean, I don't know. This guy just don't like his teammates, Ocon that is. But going back to the Leclerc and Norris incident, I'm a huge Lando Norris fan. I have the McLaren shirt under this Nike hoodie. But I gotta be honest, that incident was all Norris's fault. And he did deserve the penalty on his birthday, sadly. But it was a birthday weekend to forget. Mainly because he wasn't really feeling too good because he had food poisoning. But hey, to put it, I believe, P4 in the sprint to bring home some points for McLaren and to have a pretty decent race up until he retired due to an electronic issue around lap 54, I believe, something like that. It was really, really good to see Lando giving it all at a track where he's been really, really good in the past. So props to him for that. But yeah, Leclerc with an amazing drive after being shunted by Norris on, I believe, lap 6 it was, or right after the safety car. And then after that, it went into a rather dull period where we had, decent little midfield battles here and there, but nothing too much kicking off. George Russell, all safety car restarts, really flying from the pack. He would drive the pack behind him right up to the safety car line, giving them no chance to slipstream him. And I thought he did an amazing job. He was my vote for driver of the day just because how composed he was. For a driver who's, of late been a hot critic because of, Austin, for example, how he drove into signs, how he hits people sometimes and doesn't really take accountability on himself. But we saw a very mature George Russell out there today. And I was listening to the Matt Gallagher or WTF1 say, can we finally put Russell in the same category as Leclerc? Definitely in my eyes. I think George Russell's a phenomenal driver with tremendous upside, and he finally showed it on a consistent level today. The whole weekend was absolutely quick. So props to George Russell today. He really deserved the win. Sainz as well. Carlos Sainz was amazing today after starting, I believe, was it P... Oh, I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know where he started, I'll be honest. But, yeah, he was an overtaking machine today. A P3 for Sainz. His maiden podium came in Brazil under the McLaren days when the McLaren were actually a good car. And, yeah, did really, really well today as well to finish P3 after a lot of adversity with the safety cars and things like that. And I believe Sainz did the 3-stop because of the whole tires, a lot of tire strategy, and he came in relatively early on his pair of softs in the on his pair of mediums in his first stint. So yeah, tremendous driving from Sainz as well. George Russell also got the fastest lap. He was flying, like I said today, but yeah, nothing really going on in the middle part of the race. And then we had Lando Norris, with his engine or electronic problem, which initially was just a yellow flag, which then moved into a virtual safety car. But the marshals couldn't move Lando's car out of the way, which then resulted the VSC moving into a full safety car. Right after the commentators were like, "Oh, I don't think we're going to be able to see the VSC be changed to a full safety car," and they were wrong. And after that safety car restart, there's a little bit of pressure. I'm sure George, the last thing he wanted was a safety car. Like, oh shit, I gotta do this again and protect myself from Lewis Hamilton. But same thing, George and Lewis this time both got away from the safety car well. Poor Perez started on who was on the medium compound tires, just went backwards, and a bit of controversy, which I'm going to explain more on the Ethan Reich 23 channel. Make sure you subscribe to that. But basically, Max overtook Perez for 6th place with the hopes that Max would overtake Charles and Perez would then overtake Charles. But Max never overtook Charles and was told, if you can't do that, give the place back to Perez. Guess what? He did not give the place back to Checo Perez. And again, I'll explain more in my YouTube video why this was very unique, very funny and ironic, because Checo was a really, really big key role for Max's title-winning drive last season. And for him not to concede, maybe 3 points of a championship to his teammate, where Max and Red Bull have already won the World Drivers and the Constructors Championship, to you not to help out your teammate and get him just a little extension from Leclerc for the runner-up position in the Drivers Championship is very, very selfish of Max. And it goes to show who the number one driver is at Red Bull by some way and who runs Red Bull, and that's Max Verstappen. Yes, Max said he was influenced. This decision was influenced by Monaco, which happened months ago, where Checo probably didn't crash deliberately. I mean, it was insane, but to hold that grudge, if it is true, for that many months after you become World Drivers Champion, after Checo has helped you so much in the past, is very, very childish and selfish from Verstappen, and he and Red Bull should all be ashamed of themselves. Poor Checo Perez, my heart goes out to you, sir. Yeah, you deserved P6 today, and Max didn't give it to you, which is a real shame, but I'm sure there's going to be a stern talking to or a really, really drastic drop in team chemistry at Red Bull. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, a relatively, really, really good race like Brazil always offers. I mean, nonstop action for most of the race. Again, we had that middle period, like a 20-lap stint where there's not really much going on. But yeah, the start and the end of the Sunday race was amazing. George Russell getting his maiden win in Formula One. And my mind could only go to thinking and wondering, what if Mercedes had this car for the whole year? I think, I'm not a Mercedes fan, but, I'm a fan of Mercedes, but, McLaren are my team. I think the championship would look a lot different if Mercedes had this pace for most of the races this season. I mean, they were completely dominant. A 1-2 for Mercedes. The record is intact of a British constructor or a British driver winning in a Formula One season. that hasn't been. That's the one time that's like not been done is like 1952. So for the 70th year running, it stands, which is good. The penultimate race, so better late than never. But yeah, not relatively, really entertaining Brazilian Grand Prix, like always. So let me know your guys' thoughts on the Brazilian Grand Prix. How do you make of George Russell's maiden Formula One victory? And how do you make of the whole Max and Checo beef? And where could you see that going in the future? Let me know what you guys think. Take care and peace, everybody.